Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to show you how to install this beautiful Oxbox condensing unit and evaporator coil. This was a home that did not have air conditioning to start with. They just have a swamp cooler. So we're going to be installing this, the line set, the evaporator coil with the existing furnace. So let's get to work. This is basically a Train rebranded system. So I'm going to show you what these components look like. Their coils are a multi-positional. So let's open these up and show you what we got to work with. Just the size of this is very small. This is actually a 2-ton condenser. Very clean. I like the fins on it. So that's the condenser. So as you can see, this is a multi-position coil. So we can put this horizontally. We've got a drain pan right here. So this is where our condenser is gonna go. So we're gonna level out a spot right here, and we're going to maybe a little bit over so we're not like super close to that dryer vent if that's still in use. So we'll probably put it right here. And we're gonna go straight to our electrical panel. And our electrician already went ahead and put in a 30 amp breaker for this AC unit. We might need to bring this down to a 20 amp. I'll have to see what the condenser says, but this will be super easy to install. So we'll go ahead and get started by clearing this out, putting our pad down, and getting our units set. All right, so we've got our new condensing unit on our pad. Everything is leveled out. The next thing we're gonna do is hook up our electrical. So we've got our electrical panel here. This particular one didn't have any extra spaces, so we had our electrician put a new panel in. It was not up to go to code to begin with, but if your panel has open slots like this, then you're golden. All you do is slip a breaker in and wire it up. So what we're gonna do to start with is we're gonna knock out one of these knockouts here. As you can see, we've got a 1/2 inch and a 3/4. We're gonna bust out this 1/2 inch one right here. Just tap it from the bottom, just like that. It's that easy. And then our whip comes with liquid tight fittings as well. So we're gonna use the straight fitting right here. And these ones are very easy to use. All you do is slide it in and you just twist it until it gets tight. And that's it. So we're just gonna slide this up through here. Be very cautious too. This is obviously live, so we don't want to get anywhere near these live lugs here. Just gonna feed our nut over. We're gonna snug that up, and then we'll make our connections. We can actually pop this breaker off if we wanted to, make our connections and then pop it in, but we have plenty of room to work with here. And then down here on the actual unit, we're just gonna fasten this next to our existing conduit. And we have just enough length. Actually, we don't even have to cut anything. We're just gonna come right here, put our 90 on, and come right into the unit. Customer has approved that we crawl through this window. Yeah, just go for it. Oh my goodness. All right, so we're down here in the crawl space. This is obviously a horizontal left system. Our coil is going to be rotated this way, like this, and then it's going to be mounted right here. We might shift it all the way over to this seam so we don't have two seams here. So I'm going to go ahead and start by dismantling this piece right here and make room for our new coil. So as you can see, this coil can be run in the horizontal right or horizontal left. Nothing is needed as far as changing the orientation, so you don't have to remove the coil and flip it or anything like that. So we're going to install it in this orientation for a horizontal left. All right, we've been down in the crawl space, so it's been kind of difficult to document. So our coil is installed. We've got a few straps up here. The furnace, basically this side is holding it up, but these are just an extra layer of precaution there. And then we've got our transition. Thankfully, most of this actually worked from the old transition, so it actually worked out really nice. So everything is done here. We've got this side of the transition pookied. This side has been mastic taped, and that side's mastic taped. So the only way that this coil was, this is how it has to be oriented. So when we hook up our vent here, the line set will come on this side, and we'll be several inches away from the exhaust vent here, so we should be good there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start routing our line set. That's where our condenser is. So we're going to start routing the line set through here, right in there. And then we're going to fasten this up to the joists with our straps so that they're nice and secure. So I've never installed one of these aux box units, so I'm not sure. Okay, it had a little bit of pressure in it, so we're good there. Our coil does not have any leaks. If we were to pull this out and had no pressure, that would be a good sign that that coil got damaged in shipping or something. All right, so this is what we've got so far. We've got our 3/4 and 3/8 line. So I'm gonna be down there receiving this, and he's just gonna feed this in. And then once we get to the furnace, we'll do our bends here. Pretty simple. So if you have an opening like this one that you can use, this vent, we have another vent right here. So even if we were to seal this one off, we'd be totally fine. If you have something you can reuse, that's ideal. But if you want to see how we drilled through a brick or through a foundation, my Cooper and Hunter mini split video shows how to do that with a hammer drill. So check that one out. All right, so we have our line set run. We went ahead and we strapped the line set up to the floor joist, so everything is nice and secure and is not going to get damaged if other people are working down here. And I wanted to show you this whole process up close on this aux box. It's very similar to any evaporator coil with a piston. This one is in a crawl space and they're not concerned about efficiency, so we're doing a piston. And if you look down here, this is what comes with this evaporator coil. And so it shows by the tonnage of the outdoor unit what piston we need. Now we upsized this coil to a 2.5 ton, but we have a 2-ton condenser. So we always want to match the piston with what size the condenser is. So you need a 0.58 piston size. And as you can see, there's like 6 different ones in here. So this is the one we're gonna use. And in the bag, we also have this little guy to remove the old one. So now that we have this cap taken off, we're just gonna pull this little dummy plug out. We're gonna make sure that we feed this into the 3/8 pipe, and we just let it sit back here. And we're gonna use this tool to just grab that piston, slide it out. And as you can see, it has a 0.70. So that would have been too large for our condenser. So we're gonna take our 0.58 out, and we're gonna make sure that the cone side goes in like this. As you can see, this is how we pulled it out, so we know that's how the new one goes back in. And now that we have that on, we can just throw this in temporarily while we're brazing the fitting on here. As you can see, this bag comes with the new fitting as well. So we already slid the nut onto here. This is at the right length. Actually, I'm gonna cut it a little bit shorter, and then we're gonna feed this on and make our connection. We are going to be using Stay-Brite 8. I do not have any affiliation with Stay-Brite 8 or Harris, but I absolutely love this stuff. There's a lot of haters about Stay-Brite 8, but I have yet to have any issues with Stay-Brite 8. As long as it's prepped right and done right, I feel like it's a great product, and it will withhold 410 or R22 pressures. So first of all, we Scotch-Brited the male piece and the female piece as well. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and apply our flux. So very basic, and something that I've been trying to make it a practice of too is not going all the way to the edge of this pipe. So maybe leave like a 1/4 inch on the end of the pipe so it's not going all the way to the edge. Kind of like that. And then when you slide this in, I also like to just wipe all of this excess flux off like that. And then we're gonna hold inward pressure as we solder this piece in. Now, a couple of things with this Stay Bright 8 is I like to do a little hook right here, and it just makes it easier. So when I'm applying heat right here, I'm going to be putting the solder in on this side, and then I'll do the opposite. I'll heat up this side, and then I'll feed some more in on the bottom. That way it's all synced well into that joint. And you'll notice too, if you have too much solder, it'll just drip out. So it's not like you're filling this pipe with solder. And some people say you'll get BBs inside, but that's not true if you're doing this correctly. These little 3/8 do not take much at all. All right, so we've got this line insulated, and let's go ahead and put on our liquid line here. So we're just gonna start by sliding that piece in. Make sure it's flush on all sides. Thread this guy in. Now, Goodman's are 20 foot-pounds for that connection. I'm gonna have to look inside the actual manual for this coil to see, but we're gonna use our Hillmore torque wrench to make sure this is tightened to the right torque spec. But you can do this with an adjustable. You obviously don't wanna get too crazy with it. It doesn't have to be like crazy tight, and you should be fine. And then the last thing we'll need to do inside here is do our condensate drain. So we're gonna show you how to do a condensate pump. Because this is lower than grade, we're gonna have a tube that comes out going into our pump, and then our tube will pump that water out of the building. All right, so we're gonna torque this down to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so we're golden there. Everything is done here. We're gonna go ahead and put our exhaust venting back on, and hopefully we'll have enough clearance here. I think we should be good. Yeah, we're not super close to that, so we should be fine there. All right, so we're gonna show you the thermostat wiring real quick. So a lot of times when you run into a furnace only system, you'll only have 2 wires, but I'm really happy because this thermostat had 3. So this has individual fan control right now, but most people don't even use that feature. And so something that a lot of people don't know that you can do is you can actually remove the green wire, and you can reuse this as your cooling signal wire. So we're gonna put the green over to Y instead of G. So that will turn the AC and the fan on simultaneously. All right, so our green, we just moved from the G over to Y. So that's our new signal wire. So we're gonna move this over to Y at the thermostat as well. And these are our 2 signal wires from the condenser. So one is gonna go to Y right here. So now we'll have 2 signal wires on our Y terminal. Snug that down. I think I put this one in too far. Right there. And the other one is going to go to our common terminal. So that's gonna give 24 volts to the contactor out at the condensing unit. And that is literally all we have to do in terms of communication wire. So this system is ready for AC. All right, guys and gals. So again, our refrigeration lines are done. We have our condensate drain with our condensate pump. Our tube comes up and it goes out over there through that vent. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna install our safety switch. So this is very basic. You just break red on the thermostat wire. And so if this overflows for whatever reason, or if this quits running, red will no longer get signal. So your thermostat will be blank and everything will be shut down. So we're gonna wire that. We're just gonna put a thermostat wire from the pump to there. And then we're gonna get our main power off of the power that goes to the furnace as well. So we're going to install right here a grommet, a restraint that will hold this so it's not rubbing against the cabinet, and then we'll make our connection in there. All right, so everything is done. We have our strain relief there. We're tapped into the main power here at the furnace, and we have our safety switch wired in. Again, we just broke red, so we've got a red and a white going up to the red inside at the control board. So this will get all of that condensate water out of the space. And as you can see, we've got plenty of room here, so we're not gonna overheat these pipes or potentially be too close to combustibles. So everything is done in here. Let's go outside and finish our refrigeration lines. We'll get our vacuum pulled and we will be ready to rock and roll. All right, so our green wire is going to G for the fan. So what we're just gonna do is shift it over to the Y wire here, and everything will be good to go at our thermostat for cooling.
That's why I'm brown.
Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, no.
So what we're gonna be using today is the Hillmore bender. And as you can see, we have a lot of slack, so we can push this in once we make our bend. And so we're gonna gradually bend this in, and as we bend it, we'll see where our bend needs to go there. So this is the reverse mandrel. So these two components you can buy separately, and it allows you to push a pipe the opposite way. And then in previous videos, you've probably seen how I had this on the bottom, so you can bend a pipe towards you. So in this particular instance, we're gonna be bending it away from us. Slide this piece on. Then we're gonna slide our pipe up, and we're gonna slide this in. And now we're gonna get as close to the building as we possibly can here. This black pipe is kind of in my way, so I'm gonna get as close as I can. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna be bending the opposite direction. And so just from looking at the orientation of this, once this is where we want it, we're gonna make our bend about right here. And it should match up with our 45 on our condensing unit. All right, so we're gonna leave it right there. And we're just gonna slowly work this. I think that's as far as I can bend it with this particular bit in. And we do have some flexibility on the inside, so we can work it, wiggle it a little bit on the inside as well. I'll show you without these two fittings how this works. So you would just put this on the bottom. It's a lot easier. Feed it onto your pipe, and then you just put that on. Make sure that the 3/4 is pointed toward your pipe. I think we're good right there. All right, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and cut our lines where we think they're gonna intercede with our condensing unit fittings here. All right, so our lines are fitted. Everything looks really good. What I'll probably do is I'll go ahead and pull this off, feed my insulation in, and then push it back and use a pipe cutter to just hold it in place right here. And then we're gonna go ahead and Scotch-Brite everything and Stay-Brite 8 this in. We have our filter dryer right here. I could have put this on the inside, but it's kind of 6s. If you wanna have it out of the weather, you can. So just so you know, Goodmans actually come with a built-in filter dryer inside of the condenser. So you don't have to put a filter dryer if you have a Goodman. This is an Oxbox. The Oxbox, Rude, Rheem, all of those do not have a filter dryer, so you have to put it inside the line set somewhere. So we'll get everything prepped here, and then we'll show you the soldering process for the outside unit. All right, so we've got our pipe cutter holding our insulation back here, which will give us a nice seamless piece of insulation. This is Scotch-Brited and fluxed, so we're ready to go ahead and solder this. So a couple of things that I really like about Stay-Brite 8 is, number one, if you were to do this with brazing, this would melt right through the pad, but this does not. It just beads up and dries. And the other thing is that we don't have to use nitrogen because this does not create any soot on the inside of the lines. It only gets to 400 degrees rather than like 1200 with brazing. And you don't even have to wrap these. They don't even get super hot. Whereas with brazing, you can definitely overheat these valves. If you don't know where to find this, simply go down to the video description, click my favorite HVAC tools, and you can find the Stay-Brite 8 combo there. Is that. So the last thing we're going to do is our thermostat wire. Very simple, just the red and the white will go to here. Polarity does not matter on this. And then we're ready for our pressure test, vacuum, fill it with refrigerant, and we're golden. All right guys, so everything is done. We're ready for our pressure test. We're going to seal this off, but the bends turned out really nice, and we've got all of our electrical is done, thermostat wire, and our main power. So we're gonna go ahead and put our cover on here. Okay, so we've got our nitrogen tank, our gauges. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to just remove our Schrader core. So we're gonna press in, and you'll notice that it clips in. It actually locks into that valve stem. So then as you thread this out, you'll notice that the Schrader core will stay in the tool itself. So now we can just set this up here for safekeeping. And now we are going to install our Schrader core removal tool. We're gonna take our blue hose, hook it up to our low side. And take our yellow hose. We're gonna go straight to our nitrogen tank here. Flip this around. We're going to make sure these are closed. Open this up. As you can see, we're set to about 300. We'll go ahead and raise this to about 350. And then we're just gonna throttle this in, and we're gonna do a 250 PSI pressure test. Okay, so we got 0. We're gonna go ahead and start throttling this in. Except we're gonna open this first. What I normally like to do is I like to go to about 50 PSI, and I'll let it sit for a second. If you have a pretty good sized leak, you'll notice that this will start going down pretty rapidly, but it looks like we're holding at 50. So We're gonna leave this for about 5 minutes, and then we're gonna go up to 250 PSI. All right, so we're holding at 51.2. We're gonna go ahead and throttle in 250 PSI. So we're gonna let this settle. For the first couple minutes, you'll notice that the nitrogen pressure will drop a few decimal points while we're letting that stabilize. So the way that this tightness test works on this S-Man digital gauge is it corresponds with the suction pressure. So we're gonna clamp this onto our suction port right here. Just make sure it has a good connection on that pipe. And after this stabilizes for a few minutes, we're going to do our tightness test, and we're gonna make note of the temperature before we started the test as well as after. And then we're gonna use the HVAC School app to verify that our pressure test is successful. So we'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll show you what our pressure is before the test and then after. All right, so our pressures have stabilized at about 255. So we're gonna hold the tightness test button. We're gonna press enter to start the test. Okay, so we're just gonna make note of our starting temperature, 99.7. And we're gonna give this about 10 minutes for our tightness test. And so we have a timer here. We've got our starting temperature of 99.8. So let's just say 100 degrees and 254.9. So we're gonna come back in 10 minutes and we're gonna see what we've got. All right, so as you can see, we're at 12 minutes, 45 seconds. Our temperature has dropped on our saturated line or on our suction line temp, and we're at 254 at the end of this test. So let's go into the HVAC app and see what we've got. All right, so we're in our HVAC School app. We're going to hit Tools. We're gonna go down to nitrogen pressure. Our atmospheric pressure is 14.7. Pressure before was 255. Our temperature before was 100. And our temperature after is 96.5. So we're gonna hit calculate. 253.3 is the minimum at what we should be at after. As you can see, we're at 253.9. So we're this much above where we need to be. 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically this tells you where your pressure should be in conjunction with that temperature. So if you didn't have this suction side temperature probe on, this number would be totally irrelevant. Basically, you can use this as a tool to calculate what your numbers should be, or this has the built-in calculation right here. So as long as you're not in the negative on this, your pressure test is successful. So we're gonna go ahead and let all of our nitrogen out. Now, what I like to do, I've been trying to make this a practice, is right here, we're gonna just close this off. We're gonna take our nitrogen off, and I like to just let all of this nitrogen out at once. If there's any remnants of flux maybe, which there should be very minimal anyway, if we let this out in one burst, all of that will come out. So we're gonna do this all in one. It also comes out very fast, and so you don't have to sit around and wait. So we are ready to do our vacuum test. So we're gonna throw our micron gauge on this side and our True Blue kit going to our vacuum pump on this side. All right, so our True Blue hose is hooked up. Again, our valve stem is removed. We've got our field piece micron gauge hooked up here. I still have the CPS, but I wanted to try out this new field piece. And then we're using the Navac 3CFM battery powered pump here. We got 3 bars. So we're gonna go ahead and let her rip. As you can see, this has a slow start. I absolutely love this pump. In this scenario, we're done with this job other than charging the system. And so it's kind of critical that we can do this in as little time as possible. And I can vacuum this system down in 10 minutes. That's such a low vacuum time compared to pulling through a manifold set. and this will run for 60 minutes. So I can pull a vacuum on 6 systems on a single charge. So we're open here, and we are open there. Let's see what we're reading so far. All right, so my field piece, that new one, I don't know if I was doing something wrong, but it just wasn't registering anything. So I went ahead and threw my CPS on. So we're at 420. We could get this lower if we let it run for longer, but as long as you're below 500 and you pass your decay test, you're golden. So we're gonna go ahead and isolate. So this pump is totally isolated from this system now. We're gonna go ahead and shut it off. And we're gonna give this 5 minutes. So 434, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 439. As long as we don't creep over 500, then we're golden. And what we're gonna do in the meantime is we'll go ahead and take these off. And as soon as our 5-minute decay test has passed, we'll go ahead and open these, and we're ready to fire this bad boy up. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. We're still at 420. We have not budged on our micron gauge. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna isolate this right here, and we're gonna go ahead and open both of these. I've heard to crack this line first. I don't think it honestly matters, but we're just gonna crack this one, let that refrigerant go in slowly. Maybe crack the other one as well, I don't know. And then what we'll do is we'll just make sure we let this unit sit for about 10 minutes to let the refrigerant stabilize, and then we can turn it off. Okay, so everything is opened up. You have these put back on. We're gonna go ahead and just remove our micron gauge. Okay, so we got the hose removed. Our Schrader core is still in this stem piece. Just gonna slide it in, lock this in place. Then we're going to open this, and as you could hear, this pressure pushed this out. We're gonna push it in and simultaneously start threading this in. So what I usually do is I'll just hold it like this with my thumb and then thread it in. And you'll notice when it hits the end that it's fully seated. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna close that. We're not gonna take this whole piece off. We're just gonna take this end off first. And we're gonna slowly verify that that valve stem is doing its job. So we're just gonna crack this slowly. Bam. So now we can take this off. We'll hook our gauges up and we'll fire this system up. All right, guys, so our thermostat is calling for cooling. We've got our high and low gauges hooked up. Both of our temp probes are hooked up. Last thing we're gonna do is bump on the breaker, and we should be in business. Instant heat out the top. All right, guys, so this system has been running for about 10-15 minutes now. We're at 139, 47 degree indoor coil. This is kind of high. Our superheat is pretty much right where we want it with the outdoor temperatures the way they are. We're not as concerned about the subcooling since this has a piston. I might come back in a day or two when the house is cooler inside, throw my gauges on and just see where we're at. But it's super hot outside, so the head pressure's pretty high. But everything is running good. We've got a 20 degree temperature differential, so we're pulling in 79 degree air. We're blowing out 59 degree air out of the vents. So we're golden, got plenty of airflow. And this job is wrapped up. So the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to properly disconnect your gauges from a system so as to keep all of your pressure in the system and not in your gauges. So the first thing that we wanna do is we're just gonna burp these lines. Just gonna crack it for a second to let any air out that might be trapped in here. Now we're gonna open up the high side on our gauge, which will allow that refrigerant to travel from here into here. We're gonna burp this yellow line. And now we can close this back, so all of our lines have been burped. And we're gonna go ahead and remove our probes here to get them out of the way. And we're gonna start by removing the high side. You wanna do this pretty quickly. You should just get one little spurt if you've got these nice low loss fittings. I love these. You can find them on our Amazon store. So we're gonna store this one here. And now is the special part. We're going to open this side, and we're going to open the low side slowly, and we're just gonna let these pressures equalize until they both read the same. There you go. So we both have 140, so we're gonna close both of these off, and then we're good to remove our suction side. And that's the best way to remove your gauges, so as to keep all of your refrigerant in the system and not in your gauge set. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative, whether you're a tradesman doing this type of work for a living, or if you're a DIYer and you want to do this. All of the items that we used can be found in the video description in my Amazon store. Now, if you want to see another AC installation video, check out this one right here, and I'm sure you'll like that installation and find it informative as well. Until next time, you guys be safe. Later. Today, we're going to be installing an aux box. Why is it called an aux box? Because they're tough as oxes and they're shaped like a box.